One of the advantages of having lived 4 years here in Spain is that I can share my experiences with you guys here on YouTube. That is basically what this channel is about, and today I will share 5 things I think anyone who is considering moving to Spain would benefit from knowing. Especially my 5th and last point today can seem somewhat counterintuitive, so make sure to stay till the end of the video. Alright, without further ado, the first thing you should know is that Spain is a big country and it is important for you to choose the right place for you to settle down. Because there is a big difference between mainland Spain and the many islands, and again many differences going from the north compared to the south and the coastal areas compared to inland Spain. And even if you already have a place in Spain that you prefer, perhaps because you have visited here before or simply heard nice things about it, I would still suggest having a look at the country as a whole and researching the different regions to find the place that is best suited for you. I'm saying this because a lot of people end up moving to one of the popular holiday destinations. I myself am one of them, but it's worth noting that Spain has a lot to offer outside of the main vacation hotspots such as the Costa del Sol, Costa Brava, and Gran Canaria. I can suggest checking some of the cities on the north coast of Spain or some of the lesser known Canary Islands. Maybe you will find a hidden gem that is the perfect little paradise for you. Next up, we have to talk about taxes. And don't worry, this is not a boring lecture, it is simply a quick introduction to the Spanish social security system, and specifically how you pay for this. Now, if you have any type of income, you have to pay social security, and that is the case for both employees and the self-employed. If you're an employee, the social security fee will be paid by your employer, so you don't actually see the money. Also, therefore, interestingly enough, the income tax rate can appear artificially low. Or if we turn it upside down, you could say that the gross salary is artificially low because the social security has already been paid by your employer. If you notice a job description in which one of the perks mentions social security being paid by the company, I'd call bullshit on that because they are legally required to pay this on your behalf. Plus, it's already been deducted from the amount of money they can offer you as a salary. On the other hand, if you're self-employed, you have to pay the social security fee by yourself, and this is mandatory if you're a tax resident in Spain. In the long run, this is quite expensive, so if you have a limited income as a self-employed individual or as a freelancer, I would suggest doing some serious research on whether or not it makes financial sense for you to live in Spain. Moving on to the next point, which has to do with noise, because some parts of Spain are very loud. What do I mean by this? Well, based on my own experience and talking to other foreigners and locals, noise pollution is a general problem. Of course, this will depend a lot on your living circumstances and your specific surroundings. But it is not uncommon to see dogs left on balconies barking for hours, same for dogs in the countryside. Also worth noting is the fact that most buildings in Spain constructed before 2009 have very thin walls. So unless you have very quiet and considerate neighbors, you could face problems with sleeping. A couple of horror stories from my building here in the south of Spain include an alarm being on in a parking garage one entire night, and in general neighbors that slam doors at all hours and watch TV loudly the entire night. I myself sleep with earplugs most nights and dream of moving to an isolated finca one day. When I've pointed out this problem in the past, locals have complained about tourists being loud, and yes, I get that. That is also a problem, but that is not the type of noise I'm referring to here. I'm talking about a general level of noise coming from life being lived on a day-to-day basis and a lack of isolation and proper walls. Therefore, if you are a light sleeper or really just love quiet surroundings, I would suggest being extra careful choosing your neighborhood, your type of building, and in general how close you live to other people. So enough about noise, let's talk about the cost of living in Spain. So Spain has big regional differences when it comes to the cost of living. On the other hand, I would say that Spain in general offers very competitive prices when it comes to things like food, transportation, eating out, rent, or a mortgage. If you don't mind not living in the center of everything or in one of the more popular neighborhoods, you can find good deals for most things, and especially if you avoid the most popular tourist hotspots. I have made some other videos with more details on this topic, and I will link them in the description if you want to check them out. And now we've arrived at the most important point, probably, which is the fact that you don't need to speak Spanish in order to move to or work in Spain. With the exception of you wanting to move to a village in the middle of nowhere where there's no international job market and no international community, being able to speak Spanish isn't a necessity at all. I'm bringing this up because I often see people on social media claiming that moving to Spain, and in particular finding a job here without speaking Spanish, is practically impossible, and them claiming that you need to learn Spanish as fast as possible in order to function here. And that is simply not true at all, and it's also incredibly misleading. First of all, because one doesn't just simply learn a new language in a short period of time. And especially if you want to compete with native speakers of Spanish over jobs. You will almost always be at a disadvantage if Spanish is required because you're not going to be a native speaker, and getting to that level of fluency in order for you to compete with a native speaker typically takes years of intensive practice. At the same time, it's worth noting that Spain has a high unemployment rate, and since all Spanish people already speak Spanish, you're not offering a competitive advantage by learning the language yourself. You are much better off looking for a job in one of the international companies in Spain, in which speaking Spanish is less important and where you can use another language skill you have, for example, such as English. Don't get me wrong, of course it is useful being able to speak Spanish in most situations. However, it is not at all necessary to have a good life here, so please don't let that discourage you from moving here. I personally know several people who've lived here for years who speak no to very little Spanish, and they get by just fine. Alright, that was the last point for today. If you already live in Spain and you think I've forgotten something very important to mention to newcomers, don't hesitate to leave a comment. And if you are someone considering moving to Spain, don't hesitate to ask if you have any questions about what it's like to live here. I'm Nina, thank you so much for watching today. If you want to help me grow this channel, please subscribe. And then there's nothing left to say, then see you in the next video. Bye!